Have you considered, reflected Louise, that our thief might not be a through and through bad person? Oh, who cares? Lectured Kai as if he'd spent the last 10 years of his life acting as the head of police in a crime-riddled metropolis who, over the course of his career, had put hundreds of dangerous thieves behind bars. Every thief is a bad. There are no good thieves. Well, I mean, there is Robin Hood, I quickly corrected him, because I just recently watched a lovely animated movie about the adventures of Robin Hood and friends. He stole from the rich and gave to the poor. And, snapped Kai, as far as I know, that guy's been dead for centuries. And if he wasn't, he'd hardly steal from your dad or his parish. They're not that rich. Maybe you've got a point, I sighed, and pointed towards an elongated shed that ended in some kind of villa. We're there. Does anyone know what they used to make in here? Kai asked with a certain interest, having identified the shed as a tiny, long since abandoned factory. Dolls, I replied, as I had memorized that fact from the notes Kai had taken on our suspects. How mind-numbingly boring, Kai ranted. They could have at least made action figures. Or dinosaurs, I added my thoughts, since I used to be utterly fascinated by these animals from a land before our time. Oh, shush, you two. Louise waved off our fantasies. I'd love if they still had a couple of ancient dolls lying around. Hey, look, the door's open. It's like the sisters Apple and Pear knew exactly that we were coming. Then let's go in, I proposed. The hallway looked like it was from a different century, cramped from start to finish with dark furniture and gloomy with a little light that streamed in from the windows in various doors. We didn't call for the house's inhabitants. We could hardly yell for Miss Apple or Miss Pear, as neither of us remembered their actual name. Louise burst into a sudden flash of laughter and pointed at a fruit basket on top of an ancient dresser. It actually contained apples and pears. If that wasn't a good reason to laugh, I didn't know what was. Then I noticed something different. The dark wooden staircase right in front of us led to the second floor, and the adjacent wall was covered in small picture frames, though the picture frames didn't contain any pictures, but delicately handwritten sayings. Honesty stays true the longest. Save up in time and put aside, and you'll be covered in poorer times. Moses spoke, you shall not steal. Thou shalt not covet what your neighbor owns. Paulus, the heathen's apostle, spoke, who stole in the past shall not steal in the future. This went on over the length of the entire staircase. I couldn't even read every single one, but for every stair there was at least one piece of stern and sanctimonious advice. You know what? I said to my two companions, a serious expression on my face. If this is where the sisters walk by each and every day, I can't imagine that they wouldn't adhere to what's written on their own stairway wall. I think that we can cross off Apple and Pear from our list with a clean conscience, as the two sisters seem to have a clean conscience themselves. What are you doing inside of our house? We suddenly heard an agitated voice. An elderly, hunched-over lady approached us from the entrance door. She was holding a sheet bucket in one hand. Maybe she's been disposing of trash or soot, and neither of us had noticed the other, because the trash has just been around the corner, and that's why she left open the door. In that moment, none of us were certain that we wouldn't be regarded and treated as intruders. Needless to say, We felt very uncomfortable in the situation and wordlessly stormed by the irritated elderly woman and out of the door. Only after we'd ran almost the entire way back to the parsonage, we remembered the little plastic bag of cookies that we had been appointed to deliver. "I'll take it," I said, and crept back towards the villa, always strategically hiding behind the piles of snow at the side of the road. Though no one looked out of the window to look out for the eventual return of a bunch of preteen intruders, I found a pipe meant for newspaper and advertisements below the actual letterbox and shoved the bag of cookies inside of it. Then I was gone in the blink of an eye. Chapter 12, in which we are being bribed with lollies. Back inside the parsonage, we sat around the large table in the hallway and crossed out our second name for the day. We'd already ruled out 2 of our suspects, though in the bigger picture we had barely made any progress. Then we noticed my dad, dressed to go out into the snow, with one Santa Claus chocolate lolly for each of us in one hand and a bunch of papers in the other. None of this promised anything good for the future. My suspicions were confirmed almost immediately. "So," my dad started out all innocently, "here I have a little reward for so nicely delivering the biscuits to the Sisters Colonel, and a little incentive for you to accompany to church right now." "Oh, why that?" I wailed. "I don't want to go to church. It's cold and windy, and it's Christmas Eve." "Nah," said my dad. "It's the morning before Christmas Eve. After all, an eve can only be in the evening, don't you agree?" We all muttered something unintelligibly. We weren't in the right mindset to find humor in such petty subtleties. If Dad had just wanted to use us for all sorts of work that he didn't want to do himself, he shouldn't have picked us up this early. But just as I wanted to tell him my opinion to the matter, he interrupted my thought process to talk himself. "The dress rehearsal for today's nativity play starts in a couple of minutes, and you should have played the part of ox, sheep, and donkey once before the actual performance." "Oh no," wailed Kai, and Louise and I were about as appreciative of the situation as he was. "Do we at least get to wear our actual costumes?" Louise wanted to know. "Oh yes, and they are beautiful," my dad laughed, knowing exactly how get me invested in something that I didn't feel like doing at all. Someone who used to work in theater in the district town made actual papier-mâché masks. The one for the sheep has plush, white ears, the donkey got his signature long ears, and the ox has a pair of imposing horns. Each mask comes with a pretty fur cloak, a spotted cloak for the ox, a white one for the sheep, and a gray cloak for the donkey. He gave us our chocolate lollies that we started eating with morose expressions because my dad had just successfully forced us to go back into the cold. And that wasn't even the end of it. After a few minutes of rummaging the broom chamber, he gave each of us a light broom while taking along a heavy snow shovel for himself. "We need to clean up some of the snow at the church first. It snowed pretty heavily last night."